Today, we're doing something a bit different. We're not digging into the past. Instead, we've got this, well, it's like a conceptual starter pack, really. A blueprint for imagining different ways life might look in the future. We were given these sources laying out 10 pretty distinct high-stakes future scenarios, and they even include notes on how to best tell stories about them.
That's right. And it's quite structured, the source material. It gives you, the listener, a framework for thinking about future forecasting. It goes from really small details like what's literally on your plate for dinner, all the way up to huge changes in how society might be governed. And crucially, it gives us the toolkit for talking about it all.
Okay, so let's unpack this then. Our goal today is to pull out the most imaginative, the most, high stakes ideas from this list. But we also need to get a handle on the framework itself. Why these specific concepts? What makes them impactful according to the sources? Basically, you're about to get a shortcut to understanding 10 possible tomorrows, all filtered down for you.
Yeah. And what's really interesting is how the sources pair these really vivid future worlds with the how-specific structure for explaining them.
Yeah.
It's like a whole system designed to make these big speculative ideas feel immediate, memorable.
And when you look at the list, the sheer range of the 10 themes they provided,
Hmm.
it's pretty breathtaking. We're not talking about small tweaks here. These are futures spanning deep space, the bottom of the ocean, even changing how we, pay for stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
To make it a bit clearer, maybe we can group these concepts based on the kind of disruption they represent. I think maybe three main buckets emerge.
Okay, yeah, give us the groupings. Let's map out the landscape.
All right. First up, let's call it life off-world and extreme mobility. These are the scenarios about pushing boundaries, geography, even time itself. So this includes things like schools on the moon, teleportation travel, imagine vacationing on Mars in just seconds. And the really wild one, time travel tourism. Visiting dinosaurs, or maybe the Middle Ages, if you dare.
Right, the where and when can we possibly go category.
Yeah.
Got it.
Exactly. Then the second group is more about integrated technology and daily life. This is where tech gets layered right onto our routines, our everyday existence. We're talking animal translators, callers so your dog can actually talk back, future money, paying with brain chips, not cash, and even things like a robot sports league, humans versus actual robots on the field.
Okay, so tech merging with the everyday. What's the third bucket?
The third one covers the big systemic stuff.
Yeah.
Environmental and societal structures. This is wholesale change. How we organize ourselves, where we physically live. Think cities in the sky, these massive floating mega cities, or ocean homes, whole neighborhoods underwater, maybe with those glowing fish streetlights they mentioned. And probably the highest stakes idea on the list, AI presidents. Countries run by super smart algorithms.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that kind of variety shows the sources weren't just playing in one sci-fi sandbox. They're trying to capture the whole spectrum of what might change.
Okay, let's jump right into one of those high-stakes tech ideas because it just sparks immediate questions. Future money, paying with brain chips, convenience, sure, but what's the core tension the sources flag there?
Right, well, the source is going to skip past the convenience part pretty quickly. We get it, instant payment, seamless. What they really dig into is the friction it creates, the idea of basically eliminating personal financial privacy altogether. You trade that instant access for complete traceability, for, centralized economic control.
So the real deep dive isn't just, wow, chips are faster. It's about who owns the data, who holds the ledger, and what does total transparency actually do to individual freedom?
Precisely. Convenience versus opacity, essentially. If every single tiny transaction, every coffee you buy is tracked and routed through one central system, which, by the way, has to be perfectly secure, then that system becomes maybe the most critical piece of infrastructure in society. The sources really emphasize that in this future, one bug, one hack, it could freeze the entire financial world for everyone, instantly.
That idea of instant paralysis, yeah, that's a much richer angle than just the speed of the transaction.
And that level of specific insight, that granular thinking, is what makes these concepts really stick in your mind. Just like the details they mention for the future of food. 3D printed pizza, burgers made from insects, and who wouldn't want this? Space ice cream. It grounds these huge societal shifts in something really basic, our stomachs.
I love that. Grounding the Okay, but future money is high-stakes tech, then AI presidents. That's got to be the peak high-stakes societal structure. Running a whole country with robots implies perfection, right? Algorithmic efficiency. But governing, well, it's messy. It's about compromise, human stuff, empathy. Did the source material get into that necessary human messiness?
It did, yeah. And this is actually one of the most, I think, profound points the sources make. The friction isn't just about raw intelligence. It's about the fundamental clash between pure algorithmic efficiency and, well, human consensus, how we actually agree on things.
Yeah.
An AI president might solve resource allocation or climate change with mathematical perfection, sure. But translating that perfect decision into policy that satisfies messy, emotional humans, people who value tradition or culture, maybe more than pure efficiency, that's the real challenge.
So the conflict isn't just can AIs make good decisions, it's can AIs manage irrational human populations.
Yeah,
It's basically politics, right?
exactly. The sources highlight that, okay, maybe an AI president gets rid of human bias, corruption, but it introduces a new bias, the bias of pure logic. Human empathy, which is pretty crucial for things like diplomacy, compromise gets replaced by cold calculation. That's a massive philosophical trade-off. The source material really forces you to wrestle with.
That deeper analysis, finding the conflict within the future idea, seems key. Okay, let's pivot to the concept the sources gave the most detail on, because it seems like the perfect illustration of this. Mix the deep analysis plus the fun, everyday examples. Schools on the Moon, set specifically in 2085.
Right, and this one really pulls together elements from all three buckets we talked about.
Yeah.
Off-world living, integrated tech, and those daily life changes all merging together.
They really flesh out the logistics. Kids aren't catching the bus, they're hopping into a rocket shuttle for their daily commute, up to Lunar Base Alpha. And the teachers, forget flesh and blood. Classes are apparently taught entirely by these high-definition hologram instructors.
And the environment itself shapes the fun, right?
Yeah.
Like low gravity, forget soccer, wouldn't work. So the sources invent this new game, Moonball, where the whole point is the ball never touches the ground. Students have to master moving vertically. It's pure invention driven by physics.
Which leads perfectly into that narrative trick they recommend, the funny twist. Because even in 2085, with hologram teachers and zero GPE, they still have detention.
Okay, so what's moon detention like?
Apparently, it means being locked in a low-gravity room where you just float for hours. That detail, it's brilliant. It grounds this totally extreme environment in a really mundane, maybe slightly awful, but recognizable school problem, blends the fantasy and the relatable perfectly.
And that whole moon school example,
Yeah.
the science, the specific invention, the funny twist, it brings us neatly to the other key part of the source material, the narrative blueprint itself. This structure they recommend is designed to stop you from just info dumping. To make these futures stick with the audience, it's the framework that makes it all digestible.
Yeah, it's a really clean four-part structure they lay out. Let's break down why each step is there, starting with the intro.
Okay, the intro is all about speed, hooking you fast.
Yeah.
Introduce the core idea, say, ocean homes, and then immediately hit them with that opening question. Have you ever wondered what it would be like if... It just sets that curiosity hook right away before anyone can tune out.
Right. Then you get into the meat of it, the main story.
Correct. And the main story does three crucial things pretty quickly. First, describe the place or the event. Use sensory details. Second, explain how it actually works. That blend again, science plus imagination. And third, give those specific, sticky examples of daily life, like those glowing fish streetlights you mentioned for the underwater cities.
So it's not just description, it's the how, the justification for how this world functions. Which brings us back to that essential ingredient, the one that stops it feeling like a lecture, the funny twist.
Yes, adding that silly problem, that humanizing flaw. It's vital. The sources seem to recognize that even utopian visions have, practical headaches. The example they gave, kids floating away during moon PE class. It highlights the real, sometimes absurd limits you'd face in these extreme settings. It makes the world feel more real because it isn't perfect.
And then finally, the wrap-up ties it all together.
Exactly. Two main jobs for the wrap-up. First, summarize the whole future vision. Cement those key ideas, the brain chips, the AI president's dilemmas. And second, always end with a final question directly for the audience. Something like, would you actually want to live in this future?
This whole structure, it ensures you balance the big, complex ideas with those specific, memorable details. Keeps the curiosity alive long after the discussion ends.
So, okay, pulling it all together, what does this all mean? We've looked at sources that give us this framework for exploring 10 pretty radical futures. We're talking everything from replacing cash with brain chips, dealing with hologram teachers, the huge philosophical questions around AI running a country, right up to the engineering feats of floating cities. It's a massive list of possibilities. But the sources give us the map to navigate it. And if you connect that back to the structure, the bigger picture, The sources aren't just giving us a list of cool sci-fi ideas, they're offering a really sophisticated toolkit, a way to analyze and present how technology and human behavior intersect. They teach us that the futures that really resonate, they always have that specific, relatable detail, and, importantly, a central, interesting conflict or problem.
Which leaves a big question for you, our listener, to think about. We've touched on some extreme societal shifts here. Of these 10 possibilities, we've discussed things like teleportation travel, AI presidents, building entire cities underwater in ocean homes. Which one do you think would demand the most radical, the most immediate, and maybe the most difficult redesign of our existing human political systems and our physical infrastructure? Something for you to mull over.